everyone, it's April from Made in the Shed Quilts again. Right here I'm working on my Sun-Kissed Stars quilt, which is my newest pattern. It uses a lot of half rectangle triangles, and I just wanted to make a quick tutorial to show you guys how to make these if you've never made half rectangle triangles before. This is a really versatile block. You can make them in any size and any proportion, and once you know how to make them and how to trim them, then you can really make all sorts of different blocks with these. So let's jump into the tutorial and I'll show you how to make these. All right, so what we're gonna do to make these half rectangle triangles, we're actually going to make them 2 at a time. So we're gonna take this rectangle and we're gonna take this rectangle. We're gonna put them together kind of like that. So 2 lines across the diagonal and then cut between them, and that's going to result in 2 half rectangle triangles. What happens when you do that is that you end up with 2 identical half rectangle triangles, meaning like you can't turn this and have it be a mirror image of that one. So what we need to do is we need to do 2 sets of half rectangle triangles so that we end up with 4 total half rectangle triangles, and there's going to be 2 pairs that are mirror images of each other. So I'll set these aside because I made those ones earlier. And what we're going to do, so we've got these 2, these are our like colored ones. We've got our white ones, and we'll set these colored ones aside to start with. What we're going to do here, we're going to flip this over to, solids usually don't have a right and wrong side, but these ones kind of do. This is Art Gallery Pure Solids. They kind of have a wrong side. So I'm going to flip them over to the wrong side, and I'm going to mark a diagonal line with my friction pen that goes this way on one of them. And then it's going to go the opposite way on this one. And now that we have those lines marked, you can see they go opposite directions across the diagonal. We've got those, and now we're going to take our blue rectangles and we're going to line it up. We're not going to go like that. We're going to shift it so that it's looks kind of crazy. But we're going to just kind of make these corners touch over here as good as we can and make these corners touch over here as good as we can. So that one is all lined up. Let's line up our other one. Okay, and that one is all lined up. If you want to, you can go ahead and put pins like here and here. I don't usually like to do that. I just am careful about not letting my fabric move. Okay. And so I'm going to take you over to the sewing machine. We're going to sew those lines, and then I'll show you what to do from there. And there you can see we've got our stitch lines 1/4 inch away from that line on both sides of it. And now what we need to do is trim these. So we just take our ruler, lay it right on that line that we drew before. And just cut right on that line. There we go, and now we just need to press these and then we get to trim them, which is the fun part. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how I press these and really how I press everything that I sew. Anytime I press a seam, I'm always going to set the seam first with my iron. I'm going to finger press this open. I just stick my fingernails in here, get as close to that seam as I can, and just kind of roll it over really, really carefully. I don't want to warp this this fabric because now it's kind of sewn on the bias. So we don't want to stretch it, we don't want to warp it, we want to be really gentle with it. So I just, right there on that seam line, just kind of roll it with my fingernails. Press that. Then I flip it over. And I press this open. And then I flip it back over, trying to make sure that none of those seams that I pressed open flip back over on themselves. So that's nice and flat. Then I just give it a quick little spray with my spray bottle, press it again with my iron, and then I use my tailor's clapper. Keep it on there for just a few seconds, and then we end up with a really nice, crisp, flat seam. Let me go ahead and do that with the other one. Also, when I'm pressing HRTs and I'm finger pressing, I always like to start on the end that has this little narrow part right here, because that's really, it wants to kind of flip over on itself. So if you get that done first and then go to the other side, and that can kind of work a little bit better. Okay, I'm not going to press all four, but there's 2 of them. You can see that these ones are mirror images of each other because I did 1 from each of the pairs. Now let's go ahead and trim them. I am going to show you a couple different ways that we can trim this. One of them is kind of if you're a beginner at HRTs and you need a little bit more help. The other way is if you're a little bit more confident that you're not going to mess up. I'll show you both ways. So what we're going to do, we've got these 2 that we need to trim. We've got our ruler. What we're going to do first is use some tape to mark the size that we want them to be, the finished size that we want to trim them to. So these ones we want to be 2.5 inches by 6.5 inches. So we're going to take the tape, rip a little piece off, And we're gonna put the tape right here on the, just outside that 2 1/2 inch line. Line it up as good as I can. And then I can kind of wrap that around. And I'll take another piece of tape. I want this to go right here on the 6 1/2 inch line right there. So that is going to be how big our HRTs end up being. Next, what we'll do is we're going to mark a little dot 1/4 inch in from each of these corners. So we'll put one right up here. Don't make your dots as big as mine. I'm just doing that to show you where they go. And we're gonna put one right here, 1/4 inch away from that tape and 1/4 inch down from the top of the ruler. We're gonna put one right here down in this corner. I didn't line my tape up very well. Let me move that. Okay, that's a little bit better. And then we're gonna put one right here, 1/4 inch. Oh, my Sharpie's not working very well. There we go. Okay, so now we've got our tape, we've got all our dots marked. Now we're ready to trim. We got this one. What we want to do is we want to line up these dots right along the seam line. So I also kind of try to look at the actual dot that's underneath that dot, because that's going to be more accurate. And we want to watch for, we don't want to see any space right here in this corner. We want that to be, we want the fabric to go past that so that we're not cutting our HRT short. So now I'm really happy with how I've got this lined up. I've got the dot right along that seam line. I've got the dot right along that seam line. And it goes past this corner. It goes almost past that corner. Let me shift it just a teensy bit. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. I'm gonna hold that steady. Oh boy, I've got tape right there. See if I can rip that off. Okay, great. Trim that carefully. Trimmed a little piece of tape off. Okay, now that's two sides trimmed. That looks like a kind of crazy shape, but we're going to fix that. Now we basically just have to line up this side and this side with the size that we want to make it. So we're going to line that up right there, line that right there, and these dots should pretty much line right up with that seam line. And then we can just trim again. Oopsie, a ruler shift right there at the end. So I'll line it back up. Okay, we've got that one trimmed. Beautiful. And the next one is going to line up with the other dots that are on the other diagonal. Okay, turn that one around. that one looks good too. All right, and so now what you'll see, I just trimmed one of each of the pairs that we made. So these ones, especially for this pattern, for the Sun-Kissed Stars pattern, we want them to be mirror images, just like that. So you can do that. You can do that. You can do that. Okay, and now let me show you the other way that I trim these, which I think is a little bit easier. I've got these little bit smaller ones that I made earlier, and I'm not going to use tape this time. I want these ones to be 2.5 by 4.5. So I'm just going to mark my dots. This is a different ruler. I'm going to mark my dots right there at 2 1/4, and then down here at 4 1/4, and then right here, this isn't the best ruler for this, but right about there. I'm not going to use tape, but I am going to line up those dots. I'm going to make sure that my fabric is going all the way down here to where I want to trim to. It's going past right there where I want to trim. And just trim it right like that. And we just line up those corners and sides with where we want to trim. We want to make sure we're not lining up with where the dots are, but we're lining it up with that 4.5 inch line and that 2.5 inch line. And those dots are 1/4 inch in from all of those corners. Okay, let's trim the other one real quick. Lining up those dots. Beautiful. Oh, I almost lined it up with the wrong one. And there we go. We've got another pair ready to be made into the Sun-Kissed Stars quilt. Hope that helped. If you have any questions, leave them in comments down below. If you want the Sun-Kissed Stars pattern, I will link it down below. And yeah, there we've made some beautiful half rectangle triangles.